Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of You Deserve Fresh Lettuce. I am your co-host, Rachel.
And I'm Gaia.
And this episode, we're going to be talking about inviting God into your marriage. If you're not doing so already, please follow us across our social media platforms at YDFL Podcast. You can also listen to us on your favorite podcast platform, including Alexa. And you can watch all the shenanigans in our new office on YouTube. On YouTube. All right, let's get into it. So this is inviting God into your marriage. Here's the thing. First and foremost, first episode, season 1, we talk about this prayer, right?
Oh my gosh, yes.
That opened my eyes and my heart and also my marriage into the next stage of divorce and stuff like that.
Careful what you wish for.
Dahlia talked about it as well. But one of the things that we came to realize along this journey of creating the You Deserve Fresh Lettuce podcast for you guys is we sat there going, did you or I ever truly invite God into each of our marriages to help it? And we realized neither one of us ever did.
I know that not that I want to give up what type of religion I am, not that that really matters. I am Catholic, and I remember that I got married in a Catholic church, and I remember we would go to church if there was a baptism, someone's doing the first communion. Every once in a while, we would find ourselves in church. I am a woman of faith, so I would pray. I would pray our Father, because I don't really know. I didn't really do a Bible study. I didn't really do any of those things, which I know people do.
Yeah.
I know that most marriages, once they've entered a serious crisis, they will seek God to help them and guide them through marriages.
Yes.
I think that what I feel that you and I had that epiphany and that aha moment definitely was that you and I literally went down the list of things that were right and wrong, and then the things that where we know we failed in a way in the marriage, because we not once ever sat there and said we did this to try to better the marriage, where they have the weekend getaways, those retreats. I know for sure I never did them, and I don't think that I would have ever really thought to do them. Would you have? I know that I
have Spanish-speaking aunts and uncles that have done retiros, and so those are the retreats, for the married couples. And I never did them, but I had heard of them.
Then you knew that they were good.
Yeah, but that wasn't even something that was
it was probably not something that he was going to be receptive of for.
Yeah.
But I do think it's very important that you do invite God into your marriage.
For sure.
If that is, the language that you speak, and if you don't speak it, you should really consider, if things aren't going the right way and you're in the rocks. It doesn't matter what religion you are. I think it's important to do that. I talk about this book that I never read, and I gave away The Power of a Praying Wife. And I got to tell you that I had someone give it to me, and she swore to this book. She had the markings of the page, and she's like, I need you to go ahead and keep the book.
Yeah.
And I looked at the book, and I was like, cool, and I kind of opened it, and I said, I gotta pray all of this to this
Yeah.
Oh. And I was like, I don't know that I'm gonna be, my intention was there. I wanted to read the book. I didn't. If you are in a position that you think that you could salvage a marriage, it helped her, and she says that there's a lot of people that speak about this book, The Power of a Praying Wife.
So there is this whole thing, now hindsight's 20/20, right?
Yes.
And you exit the marriage, and from my personal journey, I got closer to God after my divorce.
Me too.
Yeah, we have that in common. And I can tell you, when I look inside, when I go back and I put myself inside of it, when I was in there, it just wasn't a thing. I remember my mother-in-law showing up and bringing us a Bible and these books from Benny Hinn. He's an evangelist out of Orange County, California here. And I remember saying, he's not into that. We're not into that. It's not. It's not. It's just it wasn't how we operated. And so it wasn't top of mind. I never thought, please God, save my marriage, please God. So the reason we wanted to do this episode was to say, learn from our mistakes, because we're not here to say, hey, if you pray, he's not going to cheat on you. And if you pray, he's going to stop beating you. We're not saying that necessarily. But if it's God's will for your marriage to be healed and turned around, he can and will do the work in you and the work in him that is necessary to get it done. And also to be able to turn to your spouse and hold hands and either begin the day in prayer or end the day in prayer. We can tell you firsthand as friends and as business partners and co-hosts for the show, we pray before we even begin to record here, and we hold hands and pray. I've prayed in her home and stuff like that. And so there is a power to it.
Oh, there is.
That I didn't personally use in my marriage.
No, but I think the power in it, in my opinion, is that we understand that you could pop this on and you may pop it, like just turn it off, but maybe there is something that you needed to hear today, right? And so, but before we actually go on, I know that it's always the words that we use are to hopefully better help, empower, grow, like teach people, okay, maybe if all these things aren't working, but God, give us the opportunity to share the word and to give someone light for the day, even if it's just one person that receives our message, because we're doing it with good intention in our opinion, and we pray for God to give us discernment and give us a correct word. Some of the things that we say are
we talk about some way out stuff, and we know that
some things are very left field, and we understand that. But I do understand too that there's a power behind the prayer and trying to keep inviting God into your marriage. And then there's also the prayer of you knowing something's off. And not that we're trying to get you to start praying and like lean into God.
To be an investigator. We're not saying go to him as Inspector Gadget looking for the clues.
But I'll tell you, he will show you the clues.
Oh, yeah.
And you can hire a really top-notch freaking PI, and he's probably going to get you all the details. But let me tell you, if you ask him, he will give it. He will deliver it to you. If that's truly what your ulterior motive is, because you know that he's up to no good and you want it to be revealed to you. He will reveal it to you.
Yes.
And I say this too also. We say time and time again. It's like almost redundant. But also like the devil hears it.
Yep.
God hears it. Devil hears it. And guess what? We don't know who's working in what direction. But I do feel that, in my opinion, certain prayers, like for me, when I sat there and I prayed after all this blew up, I mean, I don't know if the devil just like threw the other phone at my foot, but I think it has, I mean, obviously I prayed for something, it was revealed, it was shown. I had to make my next step, make my next choice. I know now in dating, for me, that's kind of important if they have God in their life.
Yeah.
Because obviously, I'm not going to sit there and be a Bible thumper on someone if that's not their faith.
Right.
And I'm not trying necessarily to tell someone this is how you got to operate.
You know, I think that when you're in your marriage and right now with the married, those of you that are married, you have to understand we've given you 2 full seasons here almost of literally. You know, like get your body right, get your hair, do your hair, you know, make the cookies, give him the sexy time, be the calm and the peace in the house that he needs. Like we say all of these things, but at the end of the day, we both cannot deny that you can do all those things and it can still fall apart if you don't invite God in. And so we are semi-proof of that. And so at the end of the day, the big moral sort of thing here is, have you really done everything for your marriage? Because when I stepped away, I really believed, I kind of left with my head held high because I had the peace of mind that I did everything in my power to make it work. I did everything in my power to be a good woman, a good wife, a good mother, whatever it might be, homemaker, whatever it might be, income earner, whatever. At the end of the day, though, I cannot look in the mirror, look at you and say, oh, and I prayed for my marriage and I prayed for my kids. Yeah. But I didn't sit there going, God, you know, heal us. God, fix this. God, I didn't. I just was like looking at the exit kind of. I was more like, you know, when you get on an airplane and then they're like, okay, so pay attention to the exits to the, that's how I was operating in my marriage. I was like, okay, what's
the exit strategy?
Yeah, what's the exit strategy?
Yeah, how are we jumping off this mother effer?
Yes.
Yeah, you know, I know that I had a really close friend of mine when I was married back in the day, and her husband actually would host a Bible study, and he was kind of like that was a big deal for them. And I remember, and I'll never forget that she said that she felt that her husband wouldn't cheat on her because he loved her so much, or because of the family, or because of the kids, or because of the things that they built. She felt that he had he was part of this Bible study, that he understood the importance of keeping it right with God, that he knew he couldn't disappoint him. So that's how his faith was. And she said, I know I have a good man. Granted, I understand that you guys probably can come at us with like the things
Christian men cheat too and all this kind of stuff.
Yes, and like the things that the priests have done, and I'm not going to get down that rabbit hole. But my point to that is that she literally had this conversation with me telling me, I understand that he has such strong faith. He's a man of God that I feel that because of that, he wouldn't cheat on me and he wouldn't do wrong to our family.
Did he?
Because he didn't,
Okay.
according to whatever I had seen. And he seemed like a great man. But then again,
You never
and
know.
then it's like, you get the story where you're like, I saw that coming, Jim. But, I mean, for what
So
it was, it seemed like he was a good guy.
So I had a guy on my team for my business, and he was a wonderful man, and he was a Christian man, and he was married, and he had 2 kids, a boy and a girl. And I would see beautiful women around this guy because of the industry that we're in. I'd see so many different opportunities with the late hours that we would keep sometimes, and he was pretty solid, and he was a handsome guy. And I remember I went up to him, and we had a good relationship. And I said, I just have to know. It was like a 9:00 deadline, 9 p.m. We're on deadline. I just was like, I saw a woman try it with him, and the way he handled it was great. And I said, I just have to know. And he said, it's not that my wife is so great, because the wife was kind of on edge all the time and all this kind of stuff. And it's not that things are easy with the kids, because he had one that was like suffered from depression and everything. It's not even. He said, I can't take the credit. His thing is like the kids are leaning on the mom and the mom is leaning on him. Who is he going to lean on? So he leans on God. Mm-hmm. And so if you're with a man that has no higher power to lean on, ladies and gentlemen, he's going to lean on the woman that's going to stroke his ego or something else.
And we always talk about that too.
You know what I mean?
It's like the one that says, wow, you look good, you smell good,
oh
you do this good,
you're so funny. Oh my God, your wife is so
lucky. He's all of a
lucky.
sudden comedian, and he's like the best looking and the best thing since apple butter. And then you get home and you're like, you're freaking
You're like, oh my God,
here.
Why are you so late?
And and at the end of the day, he's like, I don't want to come home to that like freaking evil beast.
Yeah.
And and so I think at the end of the day, it's so important that both of you guys are aligned. And it's so weird because with that, you understand when there isn't peace in the home, like you will gather your little troops and your spouse and you'll hold hands and say something's off here.
Yes.
We need to get back to the basics. Let's get into prayer. Let's light a quick little white candle. Let's really put some good intention into this. And I think it's so important when you have that, because I think that a lot of the time, we get so caught up in the day-to-day, like, oh, we got to go here, and the kids have a game, and we got to split, and we got to go here. And by the time you guys do dinner, you maybe do dinner on the road, and you forget what family unity is all about, and having God in your life, in that unity.
We are in a battle. Listen, as married people, I'm not married right now, but when you're married, you're in a battle. There are women trying to get at your man. There are men trying to get at your woman if you're one of the guys watching. Some of these people are your own family. Some of the people are their closest friends. Some of the people are their coworkers that they spend way more hours a day with. There's a lot of trickery. There's alcohol that lowers our inhibitions. There's drugs. There's pornography that we talk about that becomes like the third person in the room, or maybe the fifth. I don't know, whatever your situation is. But you know what I mean? Like we've talked about all these different things, and at the end of the day, like there's so much coming at your marriage that is weakening the marriage. And guess what? You can probably ward off some of this stuff sometimes, but eventually the years pass and you become less tolerant of your partner, less attracted to your partner, whatever there might be. There might be financial strife. There might be a lot of different things, health issues, so many different things that we talk about. And then in come these little things. And I always say, look, marriage is, you got to create it's like a hedge, So if you had a property that you're trying to protect, you might put like a hedge of protection, bushes all around. And really it's about like who has each other's back. And I think that when
in the hedges you put some like electrical
barbed wire and like electrical wires with the remote control.
It's beautiful. You're like, you just try me.
But I think at the end of the day, if you're in your marriage and you notice, you can feel it, ladies. Like we can feel like something's off. And instead of sitting there having babe, we need to talk. Like this is just, instead of that whole scary, defensive, insecure thing to say.
I think there's nothing worse than that, right? Getting a call. And I think that like us as women, we have like this tone where we're like, when you get home, we need to talk.
All the men are like the talk.
And then I think, but I don't think that most of the guys, depending on who you're talking about, I don't think that they do the talk. I mean, I think they're like, the stomach goes.
Yeah, they don't like, they just,
because it's like, when you get home, we need to talk. And it's like, about what? well, when you get here, you'll find out. And it's like, oh,
And it's about the
snaps.
toilet seat being left up, and he's like, thank you, Jesus, because he's been over here dicking around with
Yeah,
whoever.
he's like, thank God she didn't find freaking me hanging out with Miss Desiree over there.
Susie Lou.
Miss
You
Susie
know,
Lou.
but I think at the end of the day, you have to really understand that you are kind of in a battle, and that your marriage and your family are worth protecting. And I am guilty of not viewing it like that. I am guilty of saying, if he don't care, why should I care? Or if this is how it's going to be, then this is how it's going to be. I remember saying, hey, if I see my husband's walking through a door, like opening a door over there, I'm going to walk right through that door behind him and see what's so interesting over here. And I didn't mean it a lot of times, but in my mind, in my marriage, I thought I would. If he's going to do it, I'm going to do it. But at the end of the day, then I realized I'm not even built that way. Like, he's a guy. Like, I'm not even built that way to be doing that stuff or seeing that stuff through. Instead of turning to God, it's like, okay, I got to go on a diet. I got to do more sit-ups. I got to get smarter. I got to make more money. I got to be more friendly. I got to be kinder to his family. Like, I turn to all these other things to make him happy. I need to, like, give massages or whatever it might be. Instead of really, like, you could do all that, but I probably got to go to God.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely have to tell you that I don't remember how I operated in my mind as far as like what I was thinking, how I would have to do it, but I definitely can tell you that going to God was probably not it. I mean, there was moments where I remember we would say, well, I think that things aren't right. Let's go to church. But it was so funny because I think that we didn't even really have a true understanding of why we were going. Because I remember that we would just go get the bread, and then the most important thing, at least for Catholic religion, and I'm not trying to put my stuff out there, but is when they do the final blessing, right?
Yeah.
And then when people just go get the bread and then they leave, then I'm like, well, that's kind of like
breakfast?
pointless. Like you forgot the whole reason why you're there.
Yeah.
It's a final blessing, and it was kind of funny because we really would just go to say we went to church. It was empty. It's like taking a bag with you that has nothing in it and then just carrying it around all day and expecting it to get full, but you're not seeking anything to put in there. And so we basically, I don't know if that even that's a good analogy, but I guess what I'm saying is that we would take this bag that was empty and come out with an empty bag because we didn't come in there thinking that this is a game plan, this is how we're going to operate, this is why we're doing it. It was just to say, well, we're trying to, but we didn't know how. And sometimes people don't know how to navigate around that. And sometimes you just have to, whatever church you go to, you just have to go to whatever church you guys both decide to go with, whether that's Christian or that's whatever it is your religion is. And try to understand that there's maybe a group that you guys can join to do like the weekend getaways and maybe try to reunite in that regard.
Something that really supports the marital foundation
So you're not empty.
is going to be helpful, even though you might meet some other couples that are really weird and you're like, oh my God, I don't know if I like this.
You're like, I don't know, Susie, you over there having issues, just trying to look at my Johnny Q.
Maybe you go to a different city, but I will say that, when you're trying to fill your bucket with all these other worldly things in the name of satisfying your partner or yourself, or keeping up pretenses, at the end of the day the enemy is drilling holes in that bucket. It's drilling holes because you are not capable of it. None of us are capable of holding it all together, and we all should be turning to a higher power. And let me tell you something, if you end up divorced and you jump off this bridge and onto wherever we're at, like, we didn't get this far on our own because of our own way of thinking and our own. We had to pray through it. We had to pray all the way to here, to a show that's in 28 countries, and all this kind of advice that we gave you. Like, we prayed all the way over here.
We stay praying.
And we stay praying, and we stay single.
And we stay sane. And God still stays showing us why we need to stay this way. And we are not crying foul. And I think that at the end of the day, no matter what you're doing, whether you're single, you're married, you're divorced, you're about to get married, understand that that's so important to build a foundation. I think that oftentimes we forget about the foundation. We do things, we make these, start to plan these massive events with people and what are we serving and 7 entrees and the courses and whatever and then you forget the foundation. That's cool for one day, but for a lifetime, what are you doing? So you have to remember, what are we doing in this lifetime? What are we going to do if we're going to spend the rest of our lives together? How are we going to show up? Is it just Sundays we're going to church? Are we going on Saturdays? Are we just going for holidays? And don't be like me that carries around an empty bag because you have no purpose and you have no reason and you're just doing it to fulfill something that you don't know what you're fulfilling because you don't even know what you're doing. So I think it's so important that even if you're single, you still have to have and be in prayer and in faith, and God knows what he wants for you. And if that means that you are like us divorcees and he wants never for you to ever find someone,
that's just what it is.
Then that's just what it is.
And you got to trust
just
that plan,
that process,
and understand that you can make. What say we make plans and God laughs. And
oh my gosh, for
you
sure.
know. But at the end of the day, if you're a single woman and you're wondering, well, I don't know if this message is really for me because I'm not really with anybody, you can pray for your future husband that you've never even met yet. And you can pray that he find the steps and the courage and the faith to believe that you're out there, that you exist, and that you are worth it, and that it will be worth it. Because you have to understand, your future partner might have taken a pit stop with someone that he thought was going to be temporary, and then a kid came, and like there's all these things that we're doing in the world that are messing up plans for everybody. We're messing it all up for each other. You know, every time if you're a woman and you're hanging on to a guy that you know isn't worth it for you, you're blocking him from his destiny. You're blocking yourself potentially.
I think oftentimes, I think that's so important because oftentimes there's this famous saying, and I've used it before. Gosh, he's not Mr. Right. He's Mr. Right Now.
Right now.
Yeah. And a lot of the time, I'm sure that maybe the guys use the same freaking word. She's not Mrs. Now. She's Mrs. Right now. I don't know.
Yeah,
guys don't really operate in that regard. Guys are just kind of going with the flow. Yeah. But I do know that like. I've heard it, I've said it, and it's like, I know he's not Mr. Right, he's just Mr. Right Now. And I think that, if someone's on the outside looking in, depending, I'm not saying me per se, but I'm just saying maybe you that's out there dating this guy that is not Mr. Right, maybe there's another person that's looking at you, and maybe he would like to take you out, but you're so busy with Mr. Wrong that you're not giving yourself that opportunity. So really think about that, not to mention pray that God show you and lead you in the right path, in the right direction. And it doesn't matter what you're doing in this lifetime. We understand that this lifetime is a really, really short time, and you have a reason for being on earth. And so you just have to continue to ask God to give you discernment and to guide you and lead you, whether that's to stay in your marriage, to leave the marriage, to find a new partner, to find a partner to share this lifetime with. And just remember, like, God has a plan for you, and don't ever think that it's just never going to matter. Like, it doesn't matter if I pray. It doesn't matter if I don't do this. It doesn't matter. It matters. It all matters.
Adds up.
It all matters.
It all adds up. So I think that's all we have for you today.
It. So, but you know what? Just remember that at the end of the day, prayer, and then just ask the higher power, which is God, and He's going to reveal it to you. So just don't forget that you
deserve fresh lettuce.
Cheers.